So while the world is being smoke and mirrored and distracted by the arrest of Julian Assange over there at the Ecuadorian embassy, the bankster gangsters are waltzing off with trillions. While William Barr carries on about the crooked FBI setting people up and using the FBI to character assassinate and defame American citizens, COINTELPRO style. COINTELPRO. The way in which the FBI has been used as a bludgeon, as a weapon to attack and to discredit whistleblowers and social justice advocates. The way the FBI is used as a political weapon to keep under control opposing voices, let's put it that way. The people that would protest, they get targeted by law enforcement to shut them up and to character assassinate them is what they do. Just exactly like Comey and Mueller seem to be so good at with the Clintons, the Holders, the Bushes, the Obamas, and Loretta Lynch and Stotts and the whole company there of FBI goons, the Goombas from the KGB. FBI, KGB, get it? But let's move on here to this dog and pony show over at the House Financial Services Committee, where they bring in the perpetrators of the largest financial heist in the history of mankind. They bring in all the heads of the great big mafia-run banks. They bring in the gangster banksters to tell their story again and to defend their Federal Reserve Bank syndicate of racketeering clowns, because that's exactly what it is. They have been engaging in real estate-related speculation and real estate-related money laundering, real estate-related money laundering, Maxine Waters. Hey, Adam Schiff, real estate-related subprime predatory mortgage money laundering, Adam Schiff. Patrick McHenry, Mr. Patrick McHenry, subprime predatory mortgage frauds. Where they lied to the federal government about the quality of the mortgages to get them monetized, bought by the federal lending agencies. That racketeering scheme where they suckered huge numbers of uncredit-worthy people into no documentation, 125% funding, 10-year balloon note, high interest rate, all kinds of illegal fees, all kinds of illegal charges, and suckered huge numbers of people into their fraudulent scheme to defraud the United States financial institutions. In other words, the entire scenario was constructed to steal huge amounts of money right from the get-go, on the front end. The consumers being sucked into the predatory loans was part of the scheme to defraud the United States government. In other words, the entire scenario was criminal and illegal from A to Z, top to bottom, all of it, including the mixing of dirty money that needed to be laundered in with clean money and funding these mortgages and operations. These mortgage brokering operations were funded with the dirtiest money in the world. Maxine Waters, Patrick McHenry, and Mr. Adam Schiff, and the rest of the House and Senate Finance Committees and the House and Senate Banking Committees and the Judiciary Committees of the Congress and the Senate. And Donald J. Trump, are we listening, sir? The entire conspiracy, the entire fiasco of robbing trillions upon trillions from the U.S. government, wherein all these settlements have been had, the consumers getting sucked into these subprime predatory loans was integral to the success of the racketeering schemes. You can't complete a multi-trillion-dollar looting of the United States government without the consumer, the public's participation in these bullshit loans. Now let's cut right to the chase, ladies and gentlemen. You can't sell narcotics on the street unless you got a customer base. You can't rip off the United States government for trillions in the subprime predatory mortgage racketeering fiasco without the consumers that are required to put the entire criminal enterprise into motion. And that's to the director of the FBI, Mr. Wray, Christopher Wray, and William Barr. You can't engage in the massive swindling of international financial agencies, international financial banks and pension funds. You can't do the level of, or the magnitude of money laundering that's been going on in this world without the subprime predatory mortgages being used to lure, to bait into the system the consumers, the public, the citizens in the first place. They're integral to the scheme. It won't work without the pigeons to sign up for these subprime predatory, very unlawful mortgage rackets. So to Maxine Waters, Patrick McHenry, and Adam Schiff, I find it quite unusual that you'd bring the perpetrators down to, testify to the Congress and then soft shoe them, kid glove them, and give them the easy questions. Maxine Waters. Excuse me. Maybe it's got something to do with all the law firms, like the Daschle Group, and what's the name? Oh, Baker and Donaldson. Donaldson, Lufkin, and Jenneret, that genre of snake lawyer firms there, law firms. Tom Daschle, Senator Hudson, Senator Baker, and the butcher maker, right? You've got all these politicians in the Senate and in the Congress and in the judiciary, the federal district courts, the federal appellate courts, the Supreme Court of the United States. You got all these law firms that represent Deutsche, represent J.P. Morgan Chase, represent Wells Fargo, WAMU, Superior Bank, Citibank, Bank of America. There's a good one. The law firms and the lawyers that defend Bank of America, they're all, part of the Senate and the Congress and the state governments and the federal government agencies. It's like a great big family incest of slime bag lawyers and slime bag banksters. Trillions have walked off. Trillions have waltzed off while we're being smoke and mirrored and distracted with this WikiLeaks Julian Assange BS. And every other distraction, they want you distracted. They don't want you paying any attention regarding how the massive financial scandal, the largest heist, the largest robbery in human history has been achieved using the subprime predatory mortgage rackets and schemes of Gerald Cugno, Paramount, Pioneer, and Premier mortgage brokering, and there's a lot of other mortgage brokers involved, FHA, FHFA, Veterans Administration, Farmers Home Administration, HUD, huge Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac financial crimes, all depended on the easy credit, high interest rate, predatory subprime mortgage conspiracy. That's exactly what it is. And this high interest rate, subprime, predatory mortgage conspiracy is massively involved in the laundering of untold trillions of ill-gotten gain throughout the whole planet. Deutsche Bank, JP Morgan, Credit Suisse, I can name a few other institutions that are directly involved in this hocus pocus. Now, to describe it for people so that they can understand what is being said here, have you ever seen one of those displays where 1 million dominoes are set up so that they can sequentially be knocked down in a fantastic display of domino chain reaction? Well, let's take the subprime predatory mortgage rackets and understand that the looting of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and FHA and HUD and all this massive looting of the world's financial institutions will not work unless all the dominoes are lined up to fall down. In other words, the consuming public, the home buyers were integral to the schemes. You can't conduct a massive robbery of the U.S. financial system without employing the predicate act of luring into the conspiracy the consumers. Won't work without the loans, right? You got to have the loans, and you got to generate them by sucking into the scheme the lowly home buyer. Lowly home buyer. They're down on the totem pole, but the entire base, the entire foundation, the entire basis for these robbery schemes, the lowly borrower, consumer, were integral to carrying out the financial thievery and chicanery. Adam Schiff, Maxine Waters, Patrick McHenry, Chris Wray over at FBI, William Barr at Department of Justice. None of it works without the luring of the consumer and the lowly borrower, the would-be home buyer. You can't pull this off without employing them in the fabric of the criminal scheme. The civil fraud and racketeering that requires the pigeon, as they are known as. They're not the mark. Well, sometimes they're the mark, but usually they're the pigeon. The not very sophisticated, run-of-the-mill home buyer got sucked into being integral in the furtherance of these criminal schemes. But let's not talk about any of that, Maxine Waters, because we'll get to the bottom of who it is and how it is. They've yet again robbed the American financial system for trillions. Back in the 60s and 70s, they stole hundreds of millions, even a few billion. Then in the 80s and 90s, they stole hundreds of billions and a couple of trillion. And then during the early 2000s, the bankster gangsters went wild, and it's estimated they stole up to about 200 trillion in the international mortgage markets. Isn't this fascinating, Maxine Waters? So folks, please cut and paste and copy this video across the world. And remember one thing: you cannot build a skyscraper without the basis and the foundational aspects that will support the rest of the structure. The million domino chain reaction won't work if there's a huge number of the dominoes missing in the chain. And these mortgage rackets, these mortgage swindles do not function without the lowly consumer pigeon, the borrower, the would-be homeowner pigeon, being employed to carry out and perpetrate and further the common nexus of nuclear fact to carry out the scheme, the swindle, the racket, the crimes. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to leave it right there, and as always, hasta la vista, God bless, and you betcha we're coming back, and make sure you read all the links below. The links below are integral to your full understanding of how it is that Julian Assange and WikiLeaks be distracted. Notice the timing of Alex Jones and what's his name, Julian Assange being arrested. Julian Assange is a dog and pony show, very high level propaganda. It's all propaganda. WikiLeaks and Julian Assange have not exposed the massive looting of the world. Many trillions have been swindled from the working class of planet Earth, the working class of America, Britain, Iceland, Scotland, New Zealand, Spain, Canada, all through Japan, all through, it's all over the world. These gangster, bankster, dirt dealing, just like the Clintons. Don't forget the Clintons' land swindles, the Clinton savings and loan swindles, just exactly the same way as all the George Bush's campaign contributors and the Clintons' campaign contributors and Barack Obama's campaign contributors and Donald J. Trump's little pack of buddies. They're involved in this up to the kazoo. Right, Donald Trump? Let's talk dirt dealing, Donald Trump, and let's talk about the triad development interest of Ghabanifar, Khashoggi, the Bin Ladens, Oliver North, Secord, Poindexter, Casey, and that whole little gang of CIA bankster gangsters that you've been involved with, Donald Trump, for a very long time. You have been directly involved in all of this, Donald J. Trump, and you cannot like it all you want to, but you are exposed. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all we're going to say. Hasta la vista, God bless, and you betcha we will be coming back.